All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider postgame show. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler here at Neyland Stadium as Tennessee falls to number 18 Oklahoma, 33-27. Ryan, let's just kind of start with the obvious. Tennessee's third loss of the year, and that's a tough place to come back from when it comes to your playoff hopes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're over.
Dashed.
Yeah, I don't think, even if there is a scenario where a bunch of chaos happens and a 9-3 team gets in, it won't be this Tennessee team, which will. Even if they get to 9-3, they'll end the year with one win over a team that has a winning record. So, it's Tennessee will have stuff to play for from a pride standpoint, from a rivalry games against Florida and Vanderbilt standpoint. But as far as Tennessee's postseason aspirations, past a mid-level bowl game, those are dashed after tonight.
Bit of a weird game for Tennessee, and just kind of as this thing unfolded, Tennessee goes into halftime down. I believe it was 16-10, but felt like Tennessee was the better team in that first half. Things kind of went a little bit lopsided in the second half. What did you see from this game and just sort of how it unfolded throughout the contest?
Yeah, I think it was kind of the example of what can come back to bite you when you do play that sloppy in the first half. I mean, Tennessee, Oklahoma did not run a play inside Tennessee's 30-yard line in the first half until their final two after an interception. And yeah, I mean, Tennessee just handed Oklahoma points, strip sack and scoop and score. Interception that set Oklahoma up around midfield. Personal foul penalty got them in field goal range. Interception again. Tennessee, they miss a short field goal. They settle for a field goal. They have two more turnovers. Obviously I mentioned that they were in scoring range. I think Oklahoma scored 16 points in the first half and had 99 yards of offense. Tennessee, had something in the 200 range. So a lot of self-inflicted mistakes, a lot of costly turnovers, and bad ones too. I think Joey Aguilar's worst interceptions of the year, and those two interceptions he threw late in the first half.
Yeah, you're right. And there were some times in the first half there where Tennessee was slinging the ball down the field, and Braylon Staley was making some big plays. But I think that if you want to be a great team, if you want to be in that upper echelon, there's just mistakes that you can't make. And being able to spot your opponent 6 points before halftime, especially when they get the ball back, I know that didn't really come back to bite Tennessee in the first drive of the second half. But those are back-breaking opportunities, especially when, again, Tennessee had the lead building into that, but you close the half. What was it? Turnover, field goal.
Yep.
It's just a tough position to be in, especially when you felt like, hey, Tennessee is playing a better game to this point, but being able to go into halftime down, that's a tough place to be.
Yeah, I think, and part of it, and this certainly came into effect where Tennessee was not by far the better team in the second half or anything like that. And I think you looked at it with Tennessee's offense, you wondered, they struggled to block up front. They couldn't run the ball. Aguilar was under pressure a lot. So while they were the better team and while they were moving the ball, it didn't feel like they were just doing it with ease. And it didn't feel like, they're just going to be able to continue doing this in the second half. I do think Oklahoma's offense found a much different gear. They were much better in the second half than they were in the first half. But while Tennessee's offense was, I guess they ended up scoring more points in the second half. To me, it felt like they were worse with the 2 3-and-outs and the turnover and downs. You could kind of see how that would have happened just because Tennessee could never get its run game going. And again, it felt like it had too many negative plays.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at these stats right here, John Mateer had 80 yards net for the game, 96 total, minus 16, I guess, throughout different points. But they were able to get that going in the second half. That made things challenging for Tennessee's defense. It obviously took clock off. But you just kind of, I don't know, you had this feeling, and I think you said it right when we were in the press box. The way that Tennessee's offense was moving and the inability and the struggle to kind of get the ball moving, it just felt like, hey, Tennessee can't afford any turnovers here. Then you have those two to close down the half. And then it just became a challenge for Tennessee to kind of claw its way back in the game. They did take that lead. I believe it was, 17-16?
Yep.
But again, that was right when Oklahoma was starting to find their footing a little bit on the ground with some of those design quarterback runs.
Yeah, I mean, even that was, one big play with, Braylon Staley makes a real nice play splitting tackles. And, yeah, I think the point of Tennessee feeling like they couldn't turn the ball over was, more early in the first half when I was saying that, when I was like, they're outplaying Oklahoma. Aguilar's under pressure a lot, so there's going to be spots where you're going to be worried about turnovers, trying to get the ball out quick, pocket collapsing on them, that type of stuff. And obviously that, Oklahoma's defense is as good as it's been this year. It only forced 4 turnovers coming into the game, and they obviously forced 3 tonight.
Tennessee had a hard time running the ball Felt like that made life a little bit more difficult, especially as the game went on. Joey Aguilar finishes the game with 393 yards through the air and 3 touchdowns, but of course also had those 2 interceptions that we've been talking about. On the ground, I don't know if it has 63 total rushing yards for Tennessee.
A lot of carries.
On 35 attempts. Same thing, Oklahoma had 35 attempts themselves, had 192 rushing yards. That's a big difference in a game like this.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Oklahoma couldn't run the ball much in the first half. I think you made a good point with John Mateer. They did some design stuff that worked out. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee was having to do everything through the air, and I think that allowed Oklahoma's pass rush, even without their top guy who gets hurt in the first half, to just be in favorable spots to kind of pin their ears back. Tennessee a little bit banged up. Jesse Perry gets hurt in the game, doesn't return. But those issues were happening with Perry in the game too.
Injury bug was going around for Tennessee, and not that I believe there was a lot of guys that were lost for the remainder of the game, but just guys going down at different times obviously makes things a little bit more difficult when you've got to rotate in and rotate out. Saw a little bit of Arion Carter tonight, but again, it wasn't a ton, but just one of the notable things from the game. Tennessee now, after this game, they got a bye week this week. Then they host New Mexico State, and I believe the penultimate home game of the year, third to last week of the regular season. Then Tennessee goes on the road to Florida, then back at home for the season finale against Vanderbilt. An interesting spot for Tennessee to be in. They only have one ranked game left on the schedule, but as we mentioned at the top, there's so many conversations that are dead now because of that third loss.
Well, even to that, I mean, Tennessee doesn't have a win over a team with a winning record this year. They're 2 SEC, or I guess 2 of their 3 SEC wins. Kentucky got a win tonight. So Tennessee's 3 SEC wins, I believe, have a combined 2 SEC wins amongst the 3 of them this season.
Somebody had to win between Arkansas and Mississippi State, too.
Yeah, exactly. So, Tennessee's beat up on a bunch of bad teams, acting like, and 2 of those games were very close, acting like Tennessee is going to roll out there and expect to just roll over Florida or anybody at this point. I think would be very foolish. Anyone in the SEC, New Mexico State, I think they'll be able to roll in that game.
I think in the military-inspired uniforms should be able to get a bounce-back win. But again, like we've been saying, there's still so much more after that with those final 2 games. And obviously, the roadmap is a lot different for the rest of the season. Go ahead.
Last thing, the kicking game was huge tonight. I mean, Tennessee, Max Gilbert yanks a 37-yarder. Oklahoma hits 2 55-yarders, 51-yarder, a 40-yard field goal. Those were all massive.
Unbelievable.
And, I mean, when Tennessee down by 9 consistently there in the fourth quarter, those field goals felt massive in Oklahoma's ability to keep it a 2-score game. So, press the kicking game. Oklahoma won that battle tonight, and I think people will naturally go to the offense struggling and not doing enough, and the defense for the most part playing pretty well. But the special teams I think were big too.
If you want to go and find out more on Ryan's takeaways after the game, head over to RockyTopInsider.com. That is where also all of our post-game content will be as we wrap up this game from Neyland Stadium. It is late, though, right now. We still have a lot to do, including the RTI Press Pass podcast. So if you're watching this on YouTube, head over and keep clicking around. You can find our podcast as we bring in Ryan Sylvia as well and expand on this game a little bit more. But a break coming up next week. Tennessee's back in action at home against New Mexico State the following week, and we still have much more to talk about. Also, hey, basketball starts on Monday.
Yep.
So you and I will be back in the Food City Center for Tennessee's opener against Mercer. So still plenty on the menu for this Thanksgiving month, but obviously a frightful way to end the Halloween weekend for Tennessee as they fall to number 18 Oklahoma by a score of 33-27. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. I've been watching the RTI Reaction Show. Thanks for watching.